Good day to you. This is our evening broadcast. So we look at the situation of why did work become so tedious? Why so much injustice is involved in work? So across all relationships which are called fiduciary relationships of trust and benevolence, benefactor turns malefactor, beneficent turns maleficence. That is to say, things given for good is used by man for evil. Work is one such. So let's look at the institution of work and and using created resources given by God for work, how this relationship works. So we go to Genesis 3, Genesis chapter 3 verse 17. Then to Adam he said, God said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, but have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, saying you shall not eat from it. So to Eve there were consequences on progeny and the pregnancy process. For man, there were consequences about his work life and handling resources of earth. So for woman, the consequences came on her mothering. Man, the consequences came on his providing. But of course, both were affected at the level of their relationship with God and each other. Now, this is the special effect, ill effect that came on work, the institution of work, which means that also needs redemption. Cursed is the ground because of you. So the word cursed in the Hebrew means diminish. So the ground will not be what it was before the fall. It will not behave or yield its fruit, prosperity to man. There's a poverty curse on the ground itself. It will be hard. The original prosperity will not be there because of you. In toil you will eat of it. So this is hard toil, not pleasurable toil. This is hard toil. So when Ecclesiastes says work is God's gift, true, but in a fallen world, work is hard, made harder by man's injustice when some people own more than they ought to, and then they oppress others. So in work also, just across like any other relationship between husband and wife, husband became oppressive to wife. In the parent-child relationship, trust is broken and parent can be oppressive to the child, and child in return can become ungrateful, not reciprocating. Same with teacher and student relationship. Teachers can exploit students and students can be ungrateful and all that. In workplace also, master-servant relationship got corrupted. Master insists more work for less pay and worker insists more pay for less work. So you can see that they are on either side of the seesaw. They work against each other rather than for each other. So when it comes to rulers and the rule, the same thing happens. Rulers overstep their mark and the rule feel unjustly treated, oppressed, and so on. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. So this is an indication that man will have to work all the days of your life. So if there's someone who's on a pension, adequate pension, or children looking after parents, it's a real bonus, because the mandate was all the days of your life you will have to be involved in hard work just for survival. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you. So in the original creation there were no thorns and thistles, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread, which means hard labor again. Sweat came up till you return to the ground, because from you were taken, from where you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. So that's death pronounced. Physical death was pronounced. Initially there was spiritual separation and spiritual death. Now physical death is pronounced. It was communicated to Adam. Of course, it will be the same for woman as well. So we can see immediately that on the cross of Christ, he took all this, the curse, the thorns and thistles came upon him. He was his forehead was hammered with a crown of thorns, and there was dust, sweat, midday sun. It was hard labor on the cross. So this is the work effect man had, the curse had, the falling away had on man, the work effect. How will work get redeemed? Now, how will resources get redeemed? We know in Romans 8 there is this redemptive process. Romans 8 verse 18, I consider that the suffering of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed. 8:19, anxious longing of the creation waits eagerly for the revelation of the sons of God. So what does that mean? When God's people become sons of God, will livelihood become easier, or will livelihood become redemptive? Will earth change? Now this is the theme of transformation, and there are transformation videos and so on from Guatemala, even from Fiji and other areas where the numbers of Christians increased. The area, vegetation, products became more luxurious, more provision came, agriculture itself began to yield more. That was a series of transformation video. Then we have national examples in Korea, where in North Korea, where the boundary is, where there's a ravine, north of the ravine where North Korea is, it's all brown and very parched, and south of the ravine where South Korea is, which is largely Christian, it's very prosperous. So in the same geographical terrain, how in one terrain the curse works, and in the other terrain south of the ravine, transformation, that is when Christians increased, there were effects, geophysical or agricultural effects. Now this is to be expected, because if in the medical field Christians increase, they'll bring their redemptive value into it. They should. So this is just a large scale example, and we do have an example in Sri Lanka. From 1923, Sri Lanka had quite a powerful Christian revival movement from an indigenous group, and then by 1948, we were still under the British, we became a prosperous nation, and we were the best in the Commonwealth, and our country's GDP and all those parameters, indices, infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, and so on, became better than China and Russia, of course, and we were the best in Asian countries. We were better than all African countries, better than all South American countries, and we were even better than, this is about Ceylon, it was called Ceylon, then now Sri Lanka. We were better than many European countries which were ravaged by the Second World War. So that spiritual effect was felt from 1923 to 1953. Then with the debacle in that church, we began to have trouble after trouble in Sri Lanka, and we have still not raised our head. Whereas Sri Lanka or Ceylon was famous for its prosperity, good education, good postal system, ARFR, good medical system, and many from Asian countries came to Sri Lanka, and the Colombo plan offered many scholarships for Asian students of Asian countries to come to Sri Lankan universities, because we were so advanced. So that's the short spiritual history of our nation. When more people earnestly sought the Lord, these changes came. Romans 8:20, for the creation was subjected to futility, that's part of the curse, fruitlessness, not willingly, but because of him who subject it in hope. What was the hope? That the revelations of the sons of God, when God's people arise to their call and stature, restoration, reconstruction, things would be different. Verse 21, that the creation itself also will be set free from its slavery to corruption into the freedom of the glory of the children of God. So it is parallel to how God's people will do the recovery of the work fields. For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers pains of childbirth together until now. So this groans that are now increasing is to a decreed day. It's called childbirth because a new created order to come about, which is the millennium, where the lion shall eat straw and lion shall play with the child and so on. Adder will not sting anymore. So in the fallen process, the poison came, poisonous fruit came, other poisons came, then poisonous snakes came, centipedes came, and none of that poison was in the original creation. So we know that that's a fallen order. For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. That is Romans 8:22, which means this process is going to bring forth a new child, a new earth, which is called the millennial earth. That's where we are heading for. Of course, before that happens, there will be quite a bit of end time trouble, which is a travail process. And not only this, but also we ourselves, having the first fruits of the Spirit, we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting eagerly for our adoption as sons, the redemption of our body. So we were saved, but we are also waiting for the translation of our body, which is the resurrection and which is the second coming. So this is how the work situation is finally solved, but in between, in the interim, Christians have to be the redeemers of the work field as they do God's will in work. So when the Lord's Prayer is, Our Father which art in heaven, give us this day our daily bread, it involves the fact that our work, God is interested in our work must work for redemption, both for the redemption and salvation of our workmates, as well as our work fields and the resources we use in our work, created order will have God's prosperity. So there's a lot of, a lot of controversy about whether God intends prosperity. When God promised prosperity to Israel, of course it was national prosperity, all prospering together. And when God instituted church, you can see in the first century church, they cared for each other, shared what they had. So if a Christian increases in prosperity, he has to share it with others. There are other practical implications. A Christian businessman may not play the stock market. He might say, okay, 50% of my wealth I will save, 50% of my wealth I will put back into manufacture, livelihoods, provide employment opportunity for Christians. So those are the ways in which a redeemed Christian, transformationally thinking Christian, will work in the workplace. And then he will not, he rightfully will earn a livelihood, but he will not earn a livelihood that it oppresses others. He will not earn a livelihood as a doctor, which is unjust. So all these are part of work considerations. It's a huge topic, so I'm not going into all that, but I gave you a snapshot view of what redemption looks like in the workplace since the fall. Thank you for listening. God bless you.